Right now, your AI system is probably performing well. Outputs look correct. Processes are faster. The team isn't complaining. If anything, it feels like one of the few things that's actually working. And that's exactly why you should pay attention. Because this is the phase where most companies stop looking closely. Everything seems stable, so oversight drops. People trust the system. They move on. But inside the process, something else is already starting. A few weeks ago, a company I worked with had deployed AI into their workflow. It handled incoming requests, categorized them, generated responses, moved everything forward automatically. The results were strong. Faster turnaround, lower cost, less manual work. So they scaled it, integrated it deeper into the process, relied on it more, because at that point, there was no reason not to. But a few weeks later, one small thing changed. A team member noticed an output that didn't fully match the input. Not wrong, just slightly off. They corrected it, didn't report it, because everything else looked fine. A few days later, it happened again. Different case, same feeling. They fixed it again and moved on. Have you seen this? Where something feels slightly unreliable, but not enough to stop trusting it? That's where the shift begins. Because now, the system is no longer just producing output. It's introducing small inconsistencies. And people start compensating, quietly, without changing the system, without telling anyone, because it's faster to fix it yourself than to question the process. That's the part most companies miss. Because from the outside, nothing has changed. The AI is still performing, the numbers still look good, but inside the process, work is slowly coming back, in small ways. Extra checks, manual corrections, second looks. At first, it's barely noticeable, but it compounds. This is an AI clone, by the way, on purpose, because this is exactly how we use AI inside our own work. I run Data Wonder. We build AI systems for companies that want to automate real operational work and make sure those systems actually hold up over time. Insurance, accounting, healthcare, and this is one of the most common patterns we see. Systems that perform well early and then slowly become harder to rely on. Not because they fail, because they drift. Here's where it gets more serious. Once people start compensating, they stop fully trusting the system. Not consciously, but behavior changes. They check more. They hesitate. They rely on their own judgment more often. And that changes the process, even if nobody updates it. That's when you get two versions of reality. The reported version, where everything looks efficient, and the actual version, where people are doing extra work to maintain that efficiency. And that gap keeps growing, because the system isn't adapting, but the people are. A few months into this, leadership starts noticing something. Not a failure, a feeling. Why does this seem slower than expected? Why are we still checking things? Didn't we automate this? And there's no clear answer. Because the system is still performing, technically. That's the trap. Performance metrics stay stable long after reliability starts dropping. And by the time that gap becomes visible, you're already deep into it. That's why performing well is misleading, because it only tells you about the system, not about the process around it. And that's where most of the risk lives. Because once the system is trusted less, efficiency disappears. Not instantly, but gradually, until you're back to doing more work again. That's when companies say the AI didn't deliver. But that's not what happened. It delivered early, and then nobody tracked what changed. So what actually prevents this? Not better models, not more automation. You need to track behavior, where people start adding steps, where they stop trusting outputs, where they begin compensating. Because those signals appear early, while the system still looks like it's working. And if you catch them then, you can correct the system before drift becomes structural. Because once you're months in, you're not optimizing anymore. You're managing complexity, and that's a much harder problem. So if your AI is performing well right now, that's good. But the real question is, what's happening around it? Because that's what determines whether it keeps working or slowly becomes something your team has to work around. If this feels familiar, if your system looks efficient, but your team is starting to behave differently, that's exactly the kind of problem we work on. You can book an introduction call using the link below.